this is it. This is the week we talk about the speech that you're going to give for the first time in speech class in front of an audience. Now, I understand a few things. One of the things I understand is that you may be thinking to yourself, already? We're going to do this already? And the answer is there's really no time like the present. And then other people in here might be like, but I haven't gotten enough advice. I'm not ready for this. And I'm going to say, you are ready for this. And I also know something to be super important to keep in mind, that when you are experiencing anxiety associated with giving a speech, public speaking anxiety, sometimes the best way for me to give you advice is for you to experience the anxiety and become very aware of how your brain and your body is coping with this anxiety. Because I don't want you to get overwhelmed by your grade for this class. I want you to focus more on having an experience, getting some goals to improve, and then continuing to improve throughout the class. I'm going to show you now our week 4's to-do list. So in that way, if you happen to miss a class this week, you are able to stay up to date on what the plans are. All right, so this week in class and in Zoom classes, we're going to sign up for your very first speech. I'm going to ask that you chat about what you're hearing when we have Zoom classes. So that means that if you miss class, I'm going to ask you to comment on this YouTube video. I want you to make sure that you're annotating or taking notes for the speech requirements, because since this is a grade that is going into the grade book, you're going to want to know how you're going to be graded. I'm going to ask that you complete a note card for your very first speech. I have guiding tools for that as well. I want you to complete the checklist for the very first speech. That is attached to the packet that you are going to find on Google Classroom. And then at home, I want you to practice your speech practicing guidelines that are outlined in the speech requirements. So if you are watching this video because you were not able to attend class or in-person learning, or you are a virtual learner and you're trying to make sure that you have everything done, there is a possibility that you have not signed up for your first speech yet, and you are now seeing it on Google Classroom. So this is what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask that you go to Google Classroom. I'm going to ask that you find speech sign up. You click on that and you go to sign up. So if you are in person for periods 3 and 5, you're going to sign up here. If you are in person for periods 2, 4, and 6, you're going to sign up here. If you are a virtual student for periods 3 and 5, you're going to sign up here. And if you are a virtual student for periods 2, 4, and 6, you're going to sign up here. Now, here's the thing. If I don't see your name on this sign up midweek, don't worry, I'll sign you up. Now I'm back on Google Classroom here under the classwork section of Google Classroom, and I want to show you that there's going to be several things that should help and guide you through our very first speech that we're presenting in front of an audience. There's expectations and the rubric attached in a PDF format. So if you are a virtual student and you didn't pick that up for in-person learning, it's attached right here to Google Classroom. There is an assignment for the checklist, which is due the morning, the day that you speak. And so you can either upload picture proof via a screenshot or a picture that you've completed the first speech checklist, and that's on Google Classroom. There is a Google Drive that has everything from Google Slides, checklist, rubric, and expectations. It's all in one place. The class website, which gives you a ton of different links, including the sign up link. And of course, like I said, the sign up link, which is attached to Google Classroom as well. If you are watching this video because you missed class, whether that be for in-person or virtual learning, I'm going to ask you to do the following as makeup work. I want you to annotate the PDFs that are attached to Google Classroom that outline the expectations and the rubric for this assignment. And when you're annotating them, you can actually use a PDF editing app that's on your iPad. But here are the things that I want you looking for. These are the things I want you to annotate. And then you're going to take screenshots of your annotations and upload them to Google Classroom to get the points back for in-person and virtual learning. I'm going to ask you to look for the areas of the assignment that you do not understand, and I want you to highlight those areas. Figure out what the purpose of writing and delivering this speech is, and put stars next to those. Identify by underlining which skills you already have and maybe which skills you need to build on to be successful when writing this type of speech. Spell out who your audience is. Who are you talking to during this speech? What type of writing is expected of you? I want you to circle that when you find it, because I promise you it's not a 5-paragraph essay, so that's a hint. And then using the Rubric PDF, I want you to underline the rules associated with this speech. What is that? Is exactly what kind of things do you have to do to ensure that you are going to get a grade that you deserve for this speech? So now I want you to pause this video and go and complete this makeup work before watching the rest. Well, no, I'm serious. Go do it. Go and do this. So one of the things that you just may not understand about the assignment is the type of speech we are going to be delivering. We're going to be doing a type of speaking called extemporaneous speaking. This kind of speaking is really defined as a type of speech where a student gets a prompt, a short amount of time to write the speech, and then they go about delivering it. So you guys will be required to present to actually 2 extemporaneous speeches that last in between 1 to 2 minutes. The first one is one that we're going to be presenting to the audience in class. And the prompt for that one is, tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, this particular extemporaneous speech will give me a chance to give you some feedback on your public speaking abilities, allow me to generate some goals to help you improve on becoming a better public speaker. And of course, it gives me and you a chance to get one of the required speeches for the capstone learning project done. Now, you're going to need to make sure to outline this speech. And so that's the type of writing you're going to be doing. So why don't you look at this outline? So this outline is a pretty general outline for almost any content area. So when you have a Roman numeral 1 in an outline, you're going to be indicating what you're going to do to get the audience's attention, or the introduction. You have 3 main points, A, B, and C, and then you're going to need to elaborate or give examples or explain those main points. You have to provide evidence or give a specific event or talk about something you do in everyday life. You're going to have to make sure that you talk about your experiences, paint a picture in our head. Essentially, your 1, 2s, and 3s are helping to make your speech interesting. And Roman numeral 2 is your conclusion. So you're really providing the audience with closure. Now, this note card is obviously going to look different for everybody because we all have different experiences that help us answer the prompt, tell me a little bit about yourself. So let me tell you about that. Tell me a little bit about yourself is a prompt you may have already heard. If you have interviewed, you probably have heard somebody across a table or in an interview room ask you to tell them a little bit more about yourself. It's interesting, though, that even though that this is a #1 used prompt in any interview, how unprepared people are to answer it. So we are going to make sure that you are ready to answer this particular prompt in any interview from this point forward. Some people might call the tell me a little bit about yourself speech something like a 60-second commercial or an elevator speech. And the reason why that's the case is because most people should be focusing on answering this prompt in 1 minute, and you want to keep it as interesting as possible. So in that way, somebody who's listening to your response gets to know more about you and also gets to know about your goals and your passions. So here are some of the following things that would be really great to focus on during this speech. One would be your name. You know, it's okay to keep in mind that some people may not know your name, even if they're interviewing you. And something else to also think about is if your name is spelled differently or it's a name that maybe a lot of other people mispronounce, it's a really great idea to start with your name. So in that way, it sets an interviewer at ease. So then that way they know how to pronounce your name, and they also know that they're interviewing the right person. Okay. You may also want to talk about where you go to school right now. I find it to be quite intriguing that some people don't know where Johnstown is. or Roosevelt High School is. So it might be a good idea to even explain that Roosevelt High School is a small school in Johnstown, Colorado. And Johnstown is located in between Loveland and Greeley. It might be a good way to get a personal connection going with somebody who's interviewing you. You can talk about when you're going to be graduating, the jobs that you currently had, or currently have or had, extracurricular activities that you're passionate about. You can even talk about things like your GPA, honors and awards that you have, goals for your future, where you plan to attend college, or even some major accomplishments from your schooling or life. But you don't have to talk about all of them. Remember, this is a 3-point main point speech. So talking about school, extracurricular activities, and a job would be the perfect 3 main points. Or school, future plans, passions, and hobbies, that will work out perfectly. But I want you to keep in mind, the more main points that you add, the longer your speech gets. And for some speeches, it's great and even ideal to go over 1.5 to 2 minutes. But not with this speech. You're going to lose your audience. If they ask you to tell them a little bit about yourself, your speech should follow that format. A little bit, 1 to 2 minutes max. But I also want you to keep in mind that it's important to talk about the things that you know, care about, and are proud of. So you want to avoid negative talk. So let's give you an example. Let's say that you're talking about school and you say, well, yeah, I go to Roosevelt High School. I was going to do some extracurricular activities and stuff, but I just never got to it. Or, yeah, I go to Roosevelt. I hope I get to graduate in May. I don't know. I kind of messed up as a freshman. Or I'm not really sure what I want to do. So yeah, there's that. I could have, I wish I would have, I should have. Those are things that you want to take out of an introduction like this. Again, you want to say positive, you want to be proud of yourself, and you want to talk about how you are really adjusting your focus for your future steps. So I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to give you an example. So this is an example of a speech that I would have written if I was a senior in high school, just like you guys. My Roman numeral 1 was my first and last name. My first main point was school. My second main point was honors and awards. I talk about my goals for the future, and I provide closure. So do you want to see it? Do you want to see what it's going to look like to give this speech? Well, here we go. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Well, absolutely. For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Jennifer Gums. I am currently a senior at Poudre High School in Fort Collins. I am so proud to say, though, that this May I'm going to be graduating, and I've been very involved at Poudre High School. I've had a part-time job at the Men's Warehouse, and on top of that, I've actually completed several hours of community service. But I have to say that I think what I'm most proud of related to my experiences at Poudre have been what I have done in the classroom. I'm a very dedicated student, and I have worked really hard to maintain my 4.0 GPA. And as a result, I've gotten several honors and awards. I've been involved in the National Honor Society, the National Vocational Technical Honor Society, and right now I'm even slotted to be one of Poudre High School's valedictorians. So I'm really hoping that I'm going to be able to accomplish that goal. Speaking of goals, though, I really genuinely have a focus for my next steps. I've gotten some experience working as a teacher assistant at a local junior high school. And so I know for sure that I want to take steps to become a secondary educator, hopefully in a well-developed language arts classroom. And so I know that the University of Northern Colorado is going to be the perfect fit for me. They're going to help me hit my short and long-term goals, becoming a high school or middle school English teacher. Really, overall, though, I'm a student who I hope stands out because I've already decided what my plans are, what I'm doing, and I've worked really hard to get experiences to set me up for my next steps. I know. That was an example. Now, keep in mind something, that when you deliver this speech, it shouldn't sound like you're reading directly from an outline, like this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Hi, my name is Jennifer Combs. I go to school. I will be graduating in May 1999. I have a part-time job and participate in various acts of community service. Throughout my high school career, I've worked hard to maintain my 4.0 GPA. This first speech should be more about the conversation. And the note card and the notes that you get to use to help guide your speech are there to make you feel more at ease. So when I tell you, or when I ask you, tell me a little bit more about yourself, that's your cue to start your speech. So what do I suggest of you now before we get back to virtual class on Wednesday and Thursday? Well, I ask you to outline your speech. Now, again, if you miss class and you're doing this as makeup work, you may choose to do this outline on a separate sheet of paper or on a note card that you have at home or even on a Google Doc. But I want you to keep something in mind that when you present this speech, you're going to need to have your iPad to record yourself giving this speech. So if you're using your cell phone as a way to outline this speech, that's completely fine as long as you feel like you're going to be able to use it. But those of you who are in person and you're rewatching this just to make sure you're getting things right, use those note cards, revise those note cards, highlight those note cards, because in class on Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to guide you on how to practice this speech to make you feel more comfortable. Let's talk about how you're going to be graded, because I have provided for you guys a PDF version of the rubric, but I'm going to be filling it out as you give your speech. So that's not something that you fill out or even have to turn in. It's going to be done digitally. And so there are some things that I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to be looking at your level of effort. I'm going to be looking at your introduction, the content of your speech, the conclusion of your speech. I'm going to be looking at your eye contact, your posture and gestures. I'm going to be listening for poise, vocal expression, and enthusiasm. So I understand that might be overwhelming, which is fine because this is your very first speech. And again, the reason to give this speech is for me to kind of get a starting point on what skills you have, where I can give you goals, and how I can help you improve throughout the semester. And so on the rubric, there are some areas that you should really pay attention to. And that is making sure you have a note card, which is worth 10 points, hit a minute to 2 minutes max, that is worth 5 points, complete the checklist, which is worth 10 points, give the speech, which is worth 30 points, and you should end up with a total of 55 points. So with this special TV offer, if you make sure that you have a note card, hit the time, do the checklist, and give your speech, you could guarantee yourself an A. I'm sure everybody. You could get an A on your very first speech, because that's the point. Let's give a speech, see how it goes, and let me be the one to give you some goals and feedback to help guide you through the rest of the semester. Well, there it is, guys. You signed up for your first speech. You know what your first speech topic is about. You know how you're going to be graded. I think you're going to be ready. And so I hope I get to see you in class on Wednesday and Thursday. So you can ask me questions, we can practice, and we can be ready for that very first speech that you have in front of an audience.